On November 23, 1939, dark clouds gathered over Europe. Nearly 200 generals were called upon by their leader. In the span of just 1 year, the German forces had already seized several territories, yet further conquests were demanded. The orders were clear: continue the war, and launch an offensive against France and Britain without hesitation. The ambition was to secure the future of the German nation. The generals, however, were taken aback by the audacity of this plan. To them, it seemed reckless, if not suicidal. But their leader was unwavering, determined to impose his vision. Despite lacking formal military training, he trusted his instincts over the expertise of his seasoned officers. The German military was thus mobilized, facing an adversary that was significantly more formidable. France had the largest army in Europe, and Britain had remained unconquered for centuries. Together, they could summon millions of troops. Yet, the leader disregarded the numbers, claiming a gift for simplifying matters and boiling things down to essentials. Enter a bold strategist, General Manstein, who shared the leader's daring mindset. They agreed on the need for surprise and decisive action. On February 17, 1940, Manstein proposed an unconventional strategy that he guaranteed would succeed. By May 10, 1940, the plan was set into motion with an aerial assault targeting key airfields across France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The campaign was fierce and fast. German forces rapidly overran the defenses, taking control of major territories within days. French and British troops scrambled to respond but were unprepared for the cunning strategy. Meanwhile, German forces advanced in a seemingly impossible region, the Ardennes, a feat of military ingenuity. Within 5 days, German forces reached the critical point of Sedan. In the weeks that followed, tactical challenges arose, including bottlenecks and supply issues. Nonetheless, due to delays and missteps by Allied forces, the German troops continued their relentless advance. By May 24th, the Allies were nearly cornered, with British troops trapped at Dunkirk. However, an unexpected order halted the German advance, sparing the encircled British forces. The leader hesitated, fearing an overreach, which allowed British forces to regroup and eventually evacuate. The missed opportunity gave Britain the chance to regroup and fight another day. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill rallied his people, vowing to defend their island at all costs. Despite these setbacks, Germany pressed on. By June 22, 1940, France had fallen. The armistice was signed in the same railway carriage in which Germany's World War I defeat had been sealed. The German leader returned to Berlin in triumph, envisioning further conquests. Yet, even in victory, he claimed credit for the strategies that had brought him success, disregarding the pivotal role of his generals. By the end of 1940, his ambitions turned to the Soviet Union, a land vast beyond measure. Confident in his troops' superiority and the weakened state of the Red Army, he launched Operation Barbarossa on June 22, 1941, initiating a brutal campaign that brought devastation to Soviet territories and civilians alike. As the Eastern Campaign unfolded, the German forces began implementing a horrifying agenda. With the intention of securing living space, the Nazi regime's anti-Semitic ideology took hold, leading to the systematic targeting of Jewish communities. The SS, supported by the German army, executed mass killings, a campaign that was part of the broader genocidal policies that characterized this dark chapter in history. By the winter of 1941, German forces encountered severe resistance and the daunting reality of a Russian winter. The initial confidence of quick victory faded as the scale and resilience of the Soviet forces grew apparent. The war that had seemed destined for swift resolution was becoming an arduous, costly struggle, one that would eventually turn against Germany. The legacy of these campaigns left a lasting impact on history, not just for the military tactics but for the widespread atrocities and the immense human cost. The initial victories, achieved through audacity and strategic cunning, were overshadowed by the inhumane policies that marked the Nazi regime and the ultimately unsustainable ambitions that led to its downfall. In a significant shift in his approach, he sets his sights on Leningrad, the Soviet Union's second-largest city. However, mid-assault, he decides against a direct attack, opting instead to besiege the city. The goal: to starve its population of over 2 million, whom he deems an unnecessary burden. For him, Leningrad holds little value, so eliminating its residents is the preferred course. The soldiers settle in for a lengthy siege. This standoff will consume precious months, immobilizing nearly 200,000 men, a notable loss for ongoing military efforts. Despite their determination, the advancing forces struggle. The Red Army is resolute, and the Germans are unable to conquer the city. As winter closes in, The difficulties mount, with the troops now forced to march through quagmires as autumn turns the roads into sludge. Instead of advancing 75 kilometers a day, they barely make any progress at all. November 1941 brings the first snowfall, and with it, a frigid blizzard catches the troops off guard. Conditions deteriorate rapidly, temperatures drop to -30 degrees Celsius. Supplies dwindle, and only a third of provisions reach the front line. The tanks, once a formidable force, become virtually immobile, and exhausted soldiers find their spirits waning. As the Germans falter, Soviet forces launch a massive counter-offensive, catching them unprepared. The Red Army, with soldiers on skis and light armored vehicles, calls upon every available resource to protect Moscow. General Zhukov commands 10 battle-ready armies, mobilizing the civilian population to defend the capital. The ensuing fight leaves German forces overwhelmed, their ranks stretched thin and unable to counter the intense resistance. As this grim scenario unfolds, Hitler remains steadfast in his belief that capturing Moscow is unnecessary. While his generals argue for it, he dismisses their concerns, fearing a repeat of Napoleon's blunder. Yet, facing mounting losses and worsening conditions, he finally yields. By the time spring arrives, the Wehrmacht's failure in Russia is undeniable. Hitler is rattled, hiding away and unable to face the public with the news of their losses. He's burdened by the weight of the ongoing war, becoming increasingly isolated and reliant on tranquilizers, with only his dog, Blondie, providing him solace. Amidst this decline, his reliance on his own judgment and rejection of strategic counsel drive further failures. As the Allies land in Normandy in June 1944, a new threat looms, marking the beginning of the end for the Axis. Hitler is overwhelmed, facing formidable opponents on multiple fronts, from the Soviet Red Army to the American forces in the West.